Change your focus. Change your life. Bob Proctor motivation. I've spent 60 years watching people chase happiness, money, status, relationships, you name it. And most of them never find it. Not because they don't deserve it, but because they're focused on all the wrong things. That's what Bob Proctor meant when he said, change your focus, change your life. I didn't really understand it until much later. But once I did, everything about how I lived, thought, and felt began to shift. When I was younger, I believed success was about controlling everything around me. The job, the bills, the people, the future. I thought if I could manage my circumstances, I could finally feel at peace. But life doesn't work that way. You can't always control what happens outside, but you can always control what happens inside. And that's where your true power lies, in your focus. For most of my life, I focused on what was missing. I'd wake up thinking about what I hadn't achieved yet, what bills I had to pay, what worries waited for me that day. It was like carrying a heavy cloud around, and the more I focused on lack, the more lack I saw. Then one day, I heard Bob Proctor say, energy flows where attention goes. That one line hit me like lightning. I realized I had been feeding my fears instead of my dreams. My mind was like a garden, but I was watering the weeds. So, I decided to change what I focused on. Instead of asking, what's wrong with my life? I started asking, what's right with it? Instead of worrying about what I didn't have, I began appreciating what I did. That small change in focus turned my entire emotional world around. Now, here's what I've learned. Your focus shapes your reality. When you keep staring at problems, they grow. But when you shift your focus toward gratitude, growth, and goals, they expand instead. And guess what? The problems start shrinking. Not because they disappear, but because your mindset becomes bigger than them. I remember a time in my late 40s when my business failed. Everything I had worked for was gone overnight. My mind went into panic mode. For weeks, I couldn't think straight. But one morning, I caught myself repeating the same sentence. I can't believe I lost everything. Over and over. That's when I realized the problem wasn't the failure. The problem was my focus. I was feeding the pain instead of the possibility. So I made a choice. I started repeating something new. I still have time. I still have strength. I still have purpose. I didn't believe it at first, but I kept saying it anyway. Slowly, my focus began to shift from fear to faith. And when that happened, ideas started returning. Energy came back. Within a year, I was working again, not because the world had changed, but because I had. Bob Proctor used to say that most people let outside circumstances dictate their mood. But true freedom comes when you decide your focus, no matter what's happening. You can be in chaos and still stay calm. You can lose something and still feel abundant. That's when you become untouchable. At 60, I see focus as the steering wheel of life. If you point it toward worry, you'll drive into anxiety. If you point it toward peace, you'll start noticing beauty in places you missed before. I walk outside now and see things I never used to. The sunrise, children laughing, the quiet between moments. These small things used to be invisible to me because I was too busy focusing on what I didn't have. You know what's funny? When I stopped chasing happiness and started focusing on peace, happiness found me anyway. The more I focused on growth, the more life grew with me. The more I focused on gratitude, the more reasons I found to be grateful. That's the secret nobody tells you. Your focus is your magnet. It pulls experiences, people, and emotions that match your dominant thoughts. You don't need to fix the world. You just need to fix your focus. Now, I'm not saying ignore your problems. No, you acknowledge them, but you don't dwell on them. There's a difference between noticing and obsessing. Notice what's wrong, but focus on what's possible. The moment you do that, your mind starts working for you, not against you. Here's a small exercise that changed my life. Every night before bed, I write down 3 things that went right that day, no matter how small. Some days it's just had a good cup of tea or talked to an old friend. But that simple act trains your mind to look for what's good instead of what's missing. After a few weeks, it becomes your new habit and then your new reality. Let me tell you, peace doesn't come from a perfect life. It comes from a focused mind. You can be surrounded by noise and still be calm inside if your focus is clear. You can have less than others and still feel richer than most if your focus is on gratitude. So today, ask yourself, What have you been focusing on lately? Because that's exactly what you're creating more of. If it's fear, change it to faith. If it's worry, change it to gratitude. The shift doesn't take years. It takes one conscious moment, this one. After 60 years, I've learned that the happiest people aren't the ones who have the most. They're the ones who focus on the best, even when life gives them the worst. So if you want to change your life, stop waiting for your situation to change. Just change what you're looking at. Change your focus, and your life will follow.